But this has not silenced the critics.
Wake up! Don't be afraid! Wake up!
For these protesters at Ground Zero on the anniversary of 9/11, this new report is further evidence of an official cover-up. Leading the calls for a new investigation is a group called Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. They question the official explanation and refuse to accept its findings. Richard Gage is a member of the American Institute of Architects. He's been an architect in California for 20 years. He set up the group, which now has around 500 professionals from around the world.
No steel frame high-rise building has ever collapsed due to fire, and we have over 100 examples from which to choose.
In 1991, a fire in a Philadelphia skyscraper raged for 18 hours, but it didn't collapse. In 2005, a 32-story building in Madrid burned for a whole day. There was a partial collapse, but the building remained standing. Tower 7 burned for 7 hours.
The Madrid building burned for 24 hours. My understanding is that the steel around the perimeter was not fireproofed. In Building 7, we have a completely fireproofed building to 2 and 3 hours.
What's more, a series of experiments were carried out in these giant hangars in Cardington, Bedfordshire in the mid-1990s. They showed that steel buildings were more robust than previously thought.
The Cardington tests in the UK were exemplary in that the steel did not collapse as a result of these tests.
A purpose-built 8-story steel building was set on fire. For a short time, the steel reached temperatures of more than 1,000 degrees centigrade, far hotter than in Tower 7. Ceiling beams did sag, but no collapse was observed in any of the 6 experiments.
I'm deeply troubled by the collapse of Building 7, because if the official story is true, then what they're telling us is that our existing building codes, to which thousands of skyscrapers are currently designed with 2 and 3 hour fire protection, there's a serious problem.
After being trapped for 3 hours, Barry Jennings and Michael Hess are finally led to safety through the lobby of the building.
It was amazing, because then this big 5-story atrium was totally black and white. There were wires hanging down from everywhere that were black, and the rest of the whole lobby was white with ash. It was as if you all of a sudden had a black and white movie.
When we get outside, a police officer comes to me and says, you have to run. We have more information of bombs, so you have to run.
I ran for about 2 blocks, and after 2 blocks of running, I mean, obviously curiosity got a hold of me, and I said I wanted to turn around, and I almost couldn't believe it, and my mind is trying to process what happened to these 100-story buildings.
When I got to maybe the 19th block, Channel 7 Eyewitness News says, can we talk to you? I said, I need an ambulance. The guy said, well, just let me talk to you right quick.
We started walking down the stairs. We made it to the 8th floor. Big explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor.
All this time, I didn't know it. All this time, somebody had called my wife. Told her I died in the building.
Big explosion.
Who comes over the TV sets? Whose voice comes over? It's mine. And my sister said, wait a minute, that's Barry right there.
I said, this is it. We're dead. We're not going to make it out of here. I took a fire extinguisher and I bust the window out.
So my wife comes flying back down the stairs and says, wait a minute, is this live? Because we were told he was dead. And the little caption in the corner, left-hand corner of the TV said it was live.
The 2 tallest buildings in New York had just collapsed, cutting the water mains and severely hindering firefighting. Fireboats were brought in to pump what water they could from the Hudson River. Just after midday, firefighters were watching Tower 7 nervously. The deputy chief of the New York Fire Department that day remembers the scene.
Well, we had our special operations people set up surveying instruments to monitor and see if there was any movement of the building. We were concerned of the possibility of collapse of the building. And we had a discussion with one particular engineer there, and we asked him if we allowed it to burn, could we anticipate a collapse, and if so, how soon? And it turned out that he was pretty much right on the money, that he said in its current state you have about 5 hours.
Some people have interpreted this anticipation of collapse as evidence that the fire department and others were planning its destruction.
Silverstein, a commercial real estate tycoon with international political connections, acquired a 99-year lease.
And the owner, Larry Silverstein, has also been accused of being part of a huge conspiracy to destroy the buildings. It all stems from a TV interview when he used the phrase, "pull it."
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull. And then we watched the building. From here, we watched the building collapse.
My personal response to his comment is that he was involved in a decision to bring the building down. But who knows what he was thinking or saying. This is just speculation.
Critics say just 2 months before 9/11, Larry Silverstein took out a $3.5 billion insurance policy on the Twin Towers. A policy that would pay out in the event of a terrorist attack. But without this policy, Larry Silverstein would not have been able to buy the buildings. And the insurance was not just for terrorism. The insurance on Tower 7 dated from 1987 when it was built.
And you don't say, we made the decision to pull it, which refers to something. You wouldn't say that about a group of firemen. You would say, we made a decision to pull them out of the building.
Larry Silverstein denies any involvement in any possible conspiracy.
Arrest Larry! Arrest Larry! Arrest Larry!
And there's no evidence to suggest he was.
Larry! Arrest Larry!
Is there a simpler explanation? The fire chief, who was forced to assume command of New York's rescue operation that day, had narrowly escaped death with the collapse of the South Tower.
It was like the surface of another planet. All there was powdered debris and metal. It was a very strange scene.
Emergency teams scoured the wreckage, desperately searching for survivors, among them hundreds of their own friends and colleagues. At 3 o'clock, with the condition of Tower 7 deteriorating rapidly, Chief Nigro was forced to make an impossible choice.
The biggest decision was to make an evacuation zone around number 7, to pull everyone away, to stop the rescue efforts that were going on, which was very difficult to do because there were people trapped still, and to step back and wait.
But was Larry Silverstein really giving the orders?
We don't need to ask permission from the owner, no. When we're in charge of the building, we're in charge, and that decision would be the fire chief and his alone. That's why I would know that there is no conspiracy, because for me to be a part of that would be obscene. And it disgusts me to even think of it.
At 5:21 p.m., Tower 7 finally collapses. The 47-story skyscraper and its contents are pulverized to dust.
The sixth grader can look at this building falling at virtually free-fall speed, symmetrically and smoothly, and see that it is not a natural process. Buildings that fall in natural processes fall to the path of least resistance. They don't go straight down through themselves.
Tower 7 was a large skyscraper. At 610 feet high, it had 47 floors, each the size of a football field. There were only a few places foundations could be put down because it was built over a subway and an electricity substation. So long beams were needed to take the weight of the building on the east side, on the right here. And it had to be reinforced on the 5th to 7th floors, and also between the 22nd and 24th floors. It had 82 columns, 58 columns around the edge, and 24 core columns inside.
In order for the perimeter to fall perfectly and symmetrically, which it pretty much does at Building 7, all of those columns have to be removed within a tenth of a second of each other. Fire cannot do that. Controlled demolition can.
Did Building 7 collapse because of damage from the falling North Tower? Or was it also a controlled demolition?
Loose Change has found one demolition expert with 28 years' experience who thinks he knows what happened. When he was shown the video for the first time, he was taken aback.
Dit is controlled demolition.
Zeker weten.
Zeker weten. Er is nagesprongen. Dit is in opdracht gebeurd. Dit heeft een team gedaan van experts.
Maar dit is ook op 11 september gebeurd.
Weet je dat zeker?
Ja.
Was het zeker weten de 11e? Totaal heel waar zijn.
7 uur nadat de World Trade Center naar beneden viel.
Ja? Hebben ze hard gewerkt.
But it's not a view shared by other demolition experts. Control Demolition Incorporated is one of the world's leading demolition companies. They were consultants to the official report on the collapse of Building 7. Mark Loiseau has been in this family business all his life. He knows what it takes to bring a building down.
The largest steel structure we've taken down, which I think is still a Guinness record, is the J.L. Hudson building in Detroit. It took months to design it. It took months to prepare the structure for the placement of the explosive charges. Months. It's noisy. There's just no way to get around it. You go in, you knock out usually all the walls on the floors where you place explosives. Gut them.
Then there's the placing of all the hundreds of explosive charges, plus literally miles of initiating cable and miles more detonating cord.
Is it actually possible to have done a controlled demolition of a building like Building 7 and it to be occupied and no one to have seen anything?
In a screenplay, in a movie. Something with Bruce Willis in it, maybe. In reality, no.
But the architect Richard Gage has an answer for that.
It's possible, although this is mere speculation, that the explosives could have been planted prior to each floor being remodeled, or during such remodeling, or even during the initial erection of the building.
So when would that be? What sort of dates would you get into for that?
The building was built in the 80s.
Really? I don't know what to say to that. These explosives have a life expectancy. They have a shelf life. Some of the ones manufactured here in this country, they say use within 3 years. Otherwise, you can't trust them to go off at all.
The official investigators specifically looked at the theory of controlled demolition. They determined the smallest charge needed to destroy just one column in Tower 7 was 9 pounds of explosives. But even that would have produced a huge noise.
What we found is that about a mile away from this particular site, we would have a sound level of somewhere between 130 and 140 decibels, which would be as loud as a jet plane engine or being in front of speakers at a rock concert.
Investigators say that sound was not picked up by any videos or witnesses that they talked to. But what about sounds eyewitnesses heard inside Building 7?
When the North Tower collapsed, some of the debris that hit the building scooped out the southern face of the building, causing a lot of window damage, causing a lot of exterior columns to be broken on the lower southwest corner as well as the very top. So it's likely that all of those huge failures and damage really caused noises that were incredibly loud.
And one crucial eyewitness who assumed there'd been an explosion in Building 7 is now clear it was something else.
My